Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the SimNFL show. Real talk about fake sports. I am your host and commissioner. You can call me Pierce. Today we are continuing our coverage of the 2026 offseason in the pro football sim over at SimSN. If you're unfamiliar, come check us out on the website and on Discord. We would love to have you. So today we're going to look at some new contracts that have been signed for free agents. Go through the details of those real quick. Then we're going to have a big trade review. There were some absolutely massive trades that just dropped on Monday. We're going to go through all of those. We're going to have a quick look at our current top 10 after all the trades are done, and then a few detailed looks at some teams who are facing some cap crunches when looking at their current draft classes. So we'll do that. And then our big feature today is we are releasing the 2026 NFL schedule. So you're going to get to see by week who everyone plays. We're going to look at the primetime games and other interesting matchups. Talk about what goes into the schedule as well. So that is our big feature for today. But first, we're going to dive in with a couple more reviews. So in terms of free agency, we did have a couple of major signings. The first one is Detroit is bringing on guard Wayne Jones, a 30-year-old guard for a fully guaranteed $6.6 million contract over the next couple of years. Indianapolis bringing in defensive tackle Dave Helgeson on a 3-year, $14 million contract. This is another low 70s player, near prime age. So we're getting to see that default level of the league creep up from low 60s to mid 60s, now into those high 60s and into 70s even, where guys are still on the wire. So Helgeson coming to Indianapolis. John Pinto, a 70 overall 26-year-old, so a pretty good get for the Chiefs. In free agency, a young guy with some room left to grow. He's getting $14.5 million over the next 4 years, including $6 million guaranteed. Finally, the Jets are bringing on Michael Hammond, 71 overall defensive end, on a 2-year, $6.8 million deal. And they're also bringing on cornerback Mike Burpee, 70 overall cornerback, for a 4-year, $7 million contract, most of that being fully guaranteed. So bringing him on for depth at the cornerback position. So nothing particularly groundbreaking, but some interesting context to look at. Also, you can see, again, as I said, that level going up where low 70s guys at or just before prime age, available in free agency for some relatively reasonable amounts for teams that have the cap. So now we're going to talk about trades, and we have a lot of trades involving first-round picks. So first, the Saints moving back into the first round. Saints traded their first, which got moved around a couple times, but now they're taking their second-round pick, which was 34th, and they're moving up to 32nd. So they're moving up a couple spaces, but most importantly, getting into the first round, where that first pick, they can have a 5th-year option, so that's a big gain for them. Also picking up veteran wide receiver Charles Brown from Washington. Washington gets some cap relief. He's going to save them $5.89 million for each of the next 3 years. So Brown being paid very handsomely, but Washington's taking that bonus hit now. So New Orleans will be paying him just about $6 million a year, presumably until he retires. Also moving up 2 spots, and they're giving up a 7th-round pick, and then a younger cornerback, Brendan Hightower, is going to Washington. So Washington moves out of the first, but only goes down 2 spots, gets a little younger, and saves some money as well. The Chargers have acquired an edge rusher in William Gustafson, 72 overall, 28-year-old. They moved Charles Thomas to the Philadelphia Eagles. They also get a 7th-round pick this year and a 3rd-round pick in 2027. So yeah, Gustafson is an edge rushing outside linebacker, someone who fits their scheme, and they're bringing him in from Philadelphia. And then Indianapolis moving up 14 spots to get into the top 10, specifically to number 7 overall. So in moving up from 21 to 7, they're also sending Kansas City a couple of 3rd-round picks this year, 69 and 85 overall, a 7th-round pick, and then the big news is their 1st-round pick next year. And they are moving up a little bit in the 7th as well, in exchange for those 2/3 and the 1st overall. This is pretty big, not just for getting Indianapolis into the top 10, but when you consider that the Colts in 2022, in the very first draft, traded from 18 to 3 to take Rashawn Lyons and gave up their 23 and 24 first-round picks as well. So when they took Mitchell Reynolds last year at 11th overall, that was the first-round pick they made since Rashawn Lyons in that initial draft. So they're getting a top 10 pick this year. They're giving up that pick next year to do so. So it'll be interesting to see who's on the board at 7 and who they're going for, especially in lieu of the next 2 trades, which both dropped on Monday. So the first big news of today was that the Baltimore Ravens were moving up to number 3 overall. They worked with Minnesota and dealt their 2 lower first-round picks, 11 and 25. Packaged those together along with a second-round pick this year, number 43, with pick number 96 this year, and then a second-rounder next year. So a couple of firsts this year, a couple of seconds, and a third, all that packaged to move up to number 3 overall. They have stated they will be using that on a quarterback, even if it is the 3rd quarterback taken. So big moves from Baltimore, and then Minnesota continuing to amass an absolutely huge arsenal of picks. I believe they now have 16 in this draft, by far the most of any team, and they are a lot of high-level picks as well. So Ravens move up to number 3, stated to take a quarterback. Minnesota getting moving down 8 spots, getting an additional 1st, 2nd, 3rd this year, and a 2nd next year as well. So that would have been big news. And it is big news. Slightly tempered by the fact that Tampa Bay immediately announced that they were moving up to number 2. So they moved up from 6th to 2nd overall. Also, I have to presume with the intention of taking the 2nd quarterback. And for moving up 4 spots, swapping with Detroit, gave up 2nd and 3rd this year, and 1st, 2nd, and 3rd next year. So all told, it's very similar to Baltimore's ask, in that it's 2 firsts, 2 seconds, and a 3rd. There's also an additional next year 3rd. And the 2nd first that they give up is a year away, which is presumably why. So you would put less value on a pick a year from now, but also they had less to move up. They only moved up 4 spots. So again, in lieu of the Minnesota-Baltimore news, it makes sense, but still on its own, an absolutely massive haul for Tampa Bay, moving down 6 spots. Detroit moving down 6 spots, and Detroit having that 2nd overall pick that they traded for with the Saints. So Detroit will still have their original 1st, and now they have number 6 overall, an additional 2nd and 3rd, and then 3 additional picks in the first 3 rounds next year. Lions absolutely stocking up. Tampa Bay making a bold move. Again, have to believe that's for a quarterback as well. So a lot of trade news. With all that said, here is the updated top 10. I have marked in asterisks the 4 teams who are still the original owner of their pick, if you can believe that. So the 49ers, Giants, Patriots, and Cardinals, those are all based on their standings. 49ers staying put at number 1. Again, also have to assume that's for a quarterback. But then Buccaneers, Ravens at 2 and 3. Giants have stated they are not going QB and are holding at number 4, which, if that's true, there's a perfect place for them to be in. They get their pick of anyone else in the draft. Bengals had previously moved up to top 5, trading with the Jets. Lions and Colts had already traded up. Or we saw the Lions move back from 2 to 6, so that's where they are now. The Colts, as we just announced, moved up from 21 to 7. Patriots and Cardinals still holding put, and the Cowboys had moved up to 10 as well. So we'll see what the Cowboys do with that pick. That's a big enigma now, again, with the top 3 presuming to be quarterbacks. There could be 4 quarterbacks in the top 10. Who knows? We will know in a couple weeks. But for now, this is where our top 10 stands. As of the recording of this video, by the time it debuts, who knows what's going to be the case, but that's where we are right now. Okay, So a little mini feature today. I want to talk about 4 teams and their current cap versus their draft costs. We're going to start today with the Rams, who have just over $4 million in cap space, but are looking at $14.65 million worth of draft picks. The Rams have 9 selections in this draft, including 15th overall in the first round. I think the Rams have the toughest position cap-wise, not only because they have the largest gap, over $10 million, but so much of their roster is in getting paid bonus money that there's not a lot of room to work. You've got William Poku, who you could deal him to save $7 in salary this year, but you still got to pay the $5 million in bonus for next year, so that's only a $2 million net. Same with Paul Craven. That's $2 million this year on the last year of his deal. So losing both of those excellent athletes, you could save $4 million. That's going to leave you about $6 million short. Obviously, there is some leeway with those 9 picks, the way the top 51 works. If they're already at, if you have more than 51 people, you might get a fair amount of that back as you add new, more expensive salaries. The lowest ones drop off. So there may be a few million to be saved there, but it's going to be very, very close for the Rams. They're going to have to be very, very deliberate in the upcoming weeks, either moving picks or then moving players afterward, and figuring out a way to get that done to stay under the cap next year. San Francisco has $11.1 million in picks and less than $4 million in space, so a significant gap for them. They only have 4 picks in the upcoming draft, but one of them is first overall, which they seem intent on keeping, and for good reason. The good news of San Francisco is that they do have cap options. Joseph Bordewick has a massive $20 million salary this and next year. So if they eat an additional $8.75 million in dead cap for next year, obviously bonus this year is a wash. They're paying it either way, but they could eat that $8.75 million for next year and then save $20 million in his salary. So that gets them immediately where they need to be. Or they could work something out with Rodney LaBelle. That's a $5 million net gain, 9 in salary and 4 for next year's bonus. And then William May is about 2.6. So a couple of options there. Not any players obviously you want to lose, but that is the reality of the situation. Sometimes cap means you can't keep everyone you want to, and you have to move or cut someone. So San Francisco does have options, but they're going to need to act on at least one of those to free up cap space for the current year. Chicago has $10.85 million in picks currently and just over $4 million in space. So similar situation to San Francisco. The Bears have 7 picks right now, including 24th overall. They've traded back multiple times, so that saved them a little bit of cash. The other downside for Chicago is that they only have 44 guys on the roster currently. So most everyone they add in the draft, if they were to use all 7 of those picks, that's going to get them 251. So there's not going to be any additional saving from people falling off the top 51 because the Bears are where they are with a very slim roster. Their options: Orlando DeBerry, again, take $4 million in additional dead cap for next year to save $8 million in salary. So $4 million net there. David Sparacino, they just traded for, so he's got no bonus, but they're due to pay him $7.5 million next year. So maybe they try to re-gift him essentially and move him in order to not cut anyone. Jason Gregory gives them about a $2.8 million net if you move him now or cut him now. So a few options, several of which would be pretty painful, including Sparacino, but options that are available and ways that they can get under the cap if they need to. And then final team I want to highlight is Miami. They're not quite as big of a gap as the other teams. $9 million in picks currently, just under $5 billion in space. They have 6 picks currently, including 30th overall. They were that late first rounder. They have a bunch of guys that they traded for. So again, no bonus there, only salary that would get them where they need to be. Robert Anderson, Russell Crowe, 12 and $8 million respectively. William Redmond, $6.5 million. Now, obviously, again, they don't want to move any of these guys. They wouldn't want to cut them without compensation, because the reason they have them without bonus is that they traded for them. They spent assets to acquire these guys. Obviously, they don't want to lose them, but I'm just saying, if it comes to legality, they have options of getting under the cap. They'll have to work their magics. These three are not the only names, not the only options. They have other guys with salaries that they can work around. But they're another one that's going to be presumably very active after the draft if they keep these picks, figuring out how to pay everyone and how to move the people that they can't. And again, these could be, there could be more moves before the draft if they think they can get picks for these guys, or it might come time after the draft if nobody bites to figure out a way to move them then. But these are 4 teams. As commissioner, I'm keeping an eye on to see how they handle their cap situation going forward. Okay, so our full feature today is the 2026 NFL schedule reveal. And very quick, before I go through the whole grid, I'm going to talk about just a couple things, well, more than a couple, a few things that I try to include when I build out the schedule by hand. Also, a huge thank you to Alex Fall, who has built me a great sheet that has a lot of automatic checks and things that update that help me see who still needs to be filled in and make sure that I am doing everything correctly and keeping everything ticked and tied. And when I finally do get a grid that actually works, it is legal and there's no errors and everyone is playing who they think they're playing. So anyway, thank you, Alex, for that tool. It's been incredibly helpful. So building out the NFL schedule, a couple things to note. We have weeks 1 through 18, of course, 17 games in a bye for everybody. Bye weeks are from week 6 to week 14, with 2 each in 6 and 14, and then 4 teams a week everywhere else in between. Week 18 is all division games, always has been, to heighten the drama. As for opponents, I try to rotate the opponents by year, so it's not always the same week 18 game, and it's not always the same locations. So chances are you're not playing the same team you did last year in the final week of the season. And if you were at home last year, chances are you're away this year. And if you're not away this year, you definitely will be next year. So trying to keep the rotation of opponents different and home games different. I don't want to try to... I love having impactful games in Week 18 as a fan of the league, but I don't want to overstate or overstep my bounds in trying to predict what those games are going to be. So I keep that on a more or less rotating schedule, and I don't try to always make it 1 versus 2 or anything like that, because I'm wrong way too often. So yeah, all division games Week 18, but rotating who's home and away and who's playing who on a rotation. Also, Week 12 is, of course, Thanksgiving, so the Lions and Cowboys have home games on Thursday. That's the only time we have a double Thursday slate. We used to try the NFL triple header, but it made Sunday too quiet. Not enough going on Sundays. So we're sticking with Lions and Cowboys having home games on Thursday for Week 12. The season opener is always the reigning champion at a home game. So Week 1, Thursday Night Football this year will be Washington, as they are defending Super Bowl IV champions. So they are going to get the very first game of the season on Thursday. And then less numerical here, but in general, I try to spread out division games. I know the real NFL really likes to backload division games, and sometimes 4 or even 5 division games are in the last half of the year. I try to spread them out a little more equally than that. And also first-ranked matchups. So the way the NFL schedule works, if you finish first in your division, you are playing 5 other first-place teams, because you're playing one other division in your conference, 1st through 4th, one other division in the opposing conference, 1st through 4th. You have 3 ranked matchups, so you're playing the other 2 division winners in your conference from the divisions you don't play automatically. And then your 17th game, your extra non-conference game, is also against a division winner. And that's true for every place. That's true for 2nd, 3rd, and 4th place. But specifically for the games against division winners, 1st versus 1st, I try to spread those out through the weeks obviously not the last week, so those are division games, but throughout the season. So there's at least one marquee matchup kind of every week. A lot of times those end up being primetime matchups as well, but not always, because I do try to spread out primetime games. Also, try to minimize long road trips. The NFL is very specific about that, generally not doing more than 2 at a time. But they have complex software that does this for them. I have myself and Alex's spreadsheet. So there are some long road trips in there, 3 in a row, or 4 in 5 weeks. I do try my best to minimize those because home field advantage is a mechanical advantage in the sim. So I do try to work on that. Otherwise, I do not look at strength of schedule when I put the thing together. I just try to fit all the teams into boxes. And then, as I said, so every team gets between 2 and 5 primetime games per season. Generally, the teams that did better last year will get more primetime games, and I will try to mix them up for teams that get 3 or 4 or even 5. I try to not make them all the same, not all Sundays or Mondays. Try to mix it up a little bit. And not consecutive. So at most, a team will have 2 primetime games with an ordinary Sunday game in between. But I do try to spread that out as much as possible. And that's every week 1 through 17. The only exception is in week 18, the final week of the season. There is no Thursday or Monday game. All games are on Sunday, and there is only a Sunday night game. That is to heighten the tension and try to make every game that does matter for like a playoff race happen in quick succession. So you don't have anyone clinch on Thursday and then there's a Sunday game that no longer matters because you've known for 3 days that someone clinched and this game doesn't mean anything. Same with Monday night. You don't want everything decided and then have one extra game Monday night, between, a couple of 5 and 11 teams. So 3 primetime games every week, an extra one on Thanksgiving, and then only one on week 18. So, with all of that ado out of the way, here is your schedule for 2026. On the left-hand side, you can see your team name and your placement in the division last year. And then you can see, going across the screen, your week 1 through 18. Notice week 6 through 18, which are the bye weeks. Those are colored in blue. And then week 18, which is all division games as well. Off to the right, you can see what all the different characters mean. So we have division games, which are bolded. Non-division games, which are conference games, are in italics. Away games are highlighted. And then first place matchups, again, between two teams that won their divisions last year are in red. And then the outlines for Thursday, Saturday, and Monday night games. And then the special 2 Thanksgiving games for week 12. If you look down at the bottom, if you want to quickly see where your bye week is for your team, you can see it there. Again, you can see the distribution from week 6 to 14. But you'll notice, as I said, week 1, we start off with our champions at home. So Chicago at Washington is going to be our very first game of the season. We have a couple other fun tidbits from week 1, including a Jesse Knoll game where Dallas is going to be at the Jets, with Knoll playing on the Jets for the first time. Looking forward to that. And then our first Sunday night game is the Rams at Green Bay. And then our first Monday night will be Tennessee at Indianapolis. In addition to changing around the teams, I do try to mix up what kinds of games are in which spots. So Monday night games, I try to be a mix of division games, conference games, and inter-conference games as well. So you can see everyone has 2 primetime games at least. And then our Washington and Carolina both have 5 this year. That is the absolute max. We have a couple of divisions who have 15 primetime appearances across the entire division. So that is our max. I think that's the NFC East and the NFC South. No surprise, as I just mentioned, Washington and Carolina having the most primetime games between them. But here you can go. You can screenshot this and save this. This is the schedule grid that we will be using for 2026. And then for a different view, as we go ahead, this is our primetime game summary for 2026. So you can take a look here. As I said, 3 primetime games a week. with an extra one in week 12 for Thanksgiving, and then just the Sunday night one in week 18. But these are all of the matchups that we have in the primetime slots for 2026. So that is all I have for this week. Next week, we will continue our review of any further free agency and trade news. And then there will be a final mock draft, which I will put up. I'm not sure if that'll be the full first round, top 10, or exactly what we'll be able to cover. We will have a final look at the current draft standings and who we think is going where. And then it'll, just like that, it'll be time for the draft. And future episodes will cover the draft and all the fallout from that. And then we might even be able to get into some division previews as we get into the rest of the offseason and the preseason, preparing for the 2026 season proper to begin. But that is all for later. That is everything that I have for this episode of the SimNFL show. Thank you so much for stopping by and watching. And as I say to all users in all of our sims, good luck and have fun.